Mataji, this is chapter 5. It's like
Sorry?
we have to
No,
go for 6.
chapter
This
6.
chapter is showing
Chapter 6. Jyoti Mataji is chapter 6.
Yes, I'll change it. Give me 1 second.
uh, can I start?
Yes, Prabhuji, you can start now. Thank you.
If the wording can be a bit bigger, it will be easier, Mataji. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That will be good. The words are a bit bigger now. Text number 1. Brahma Vacha. Vam Bahirmukham Kshetram Chandrasam Havya Kavyamritanana Va Rasasya Cha.
Hare Krishna. Translations. Lord Brahma said, the mouth of the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people.
Text number 2. Sarva Yoscha Tannashe Paramayan Or Oshadinam Cha Granodaya.
His 2 nostrils are the generating centers of our breathing and of all other airs. His smelling powers generate the Ashwini Kumara demigods and all kinds of medicinal herbs, and his breathing energies produce different kinds of fragrance.
Nam Tejasam Chaksur Devasu Shini
Devasuriyasachakshinas
Karno Vishum Sham Srotram Akasha.
His eyes are the generating centers of all kinds of forms, and they glitter and illuminate. His eyeballs are like the sun and the heavenly planets. His ears hear from all sides and are receptacles for all the Vedas, and his sense of hearing is the generating center of the sky and of all kinds of sound.
Text number Gatram Vastu Sarana Sauvagyasya Cha Bhajana Sparsha Vayuscha Sarvacha Shaivahi.
His bodily surface is the breeding ground for the active principles of everything and for all kinds of auspicious opportunities. His skin, like the moving air, is the generating center for all kinds of sense of touch and is the place for performing all kinds of sacrifice.
Text number 5. Abhijajatinam Yairva Amrita Kesha Smarsuna Sila Lobadra Vidyutam.
The hairs on his body are the cause of all vegetation, particularly of those trees which are required as ingredients for sacrifice. The hairs on his head and his face are reservoirs for the clouds, and his nails are the breeding ground of electricity, stones, and iron ores.
Text number 6. Bahavaloka Prayasa Shema Karmanam.
The Lord's arms are the productive fields for the great demigods and other leaders of the living entities who protect the general mass.
Vikramo Bur भुवस्वस्य शरणस्य च सर्वकामापि हरिश्चरणादेशपदम्.
Thus, the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear.
Six number. वीर्यस्य सर्गस्य पर्जने पुंसाशिष्णा उपजते आनन्दनिर्विते.
From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and the procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting.
पायोर्यमस्य निरस्य परिमोक्षया नारदाति मृत्योर्निरायस्य गुदम्.
O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc.
परभूतिरधर्मस्य चापि पश्चिमा नार्यो न गोत्राणाम् अस्ति संहति.
The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flows the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains.
Number 11. सिन्धूनां भूतानां निधनस्य हितं पुंसो हृदयम्.
The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of living beings. Thus, it is known by the intelligent class of men.
धर्मस्य ममातुभ्यं च वस्य च विज्ञानस्य च सत्वरस्यात्मा परायणम्.
Also, the consciousness of that great personality is the abode of religious principles, mine, yours, and those of the four bachelors, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanat Kumara, Sanandana. That consciousness is also the abode of truth and transcendental knowledge.
To 16. Aham bhavan bhavashaiva manayograja surasuraga kaga mriga Sarikandharva Pasaraso Yakshobhuta Ganaraga Pasava Vidyadaras Charanadruma Iva Jalastala Grahakya Ketavasastani Nava Saram Bhutam Bhavyam Bhavachayat Vishwam Vitashti.
Beginning from me, Brahma, down to you and Bhava, Shiva, all the great sages who are born before you, the demigods, the demons, the nagas, the human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles, etc., and all phenomenal manifestations of the universes, namely the planets, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and the inhabitants of the different planetary systems, namely the Gandharvas, Apsaras, Yakshas, Rakshas, Bhutaganas, Uragas, Pashus, Pittas, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and all other different varieties of living entities, including the birds, beasts, trees, and everything that be, are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times, namely past, present, and future, although he is transcendental to all of them, eternally existing in a form not exceeding 9 inches.
Svadishnam pratapan prano bahishyau evam virajam pratapam sarbahi puman.
The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation both internally and externally.
Somritasya vyayas yasyo anam yad atyagat mahman pulsasya dadatya.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of immortality and fearlessness, and he is transcendental to death and the fruitive actions of the material world. O Narada, O Brahmana, it is therefore difficult to measure the glories of the Supreme Person.
Adeshu sarvabhutani pumsa amritam shemam abhayam trimurdaso.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be known as the supreme reservoir of all material opulences by the 1/4 of his energy in which all living entities exist. Deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from the anxieties of old age and disease exist in the kingdom of God, which is beyond the 3 higher planetary systems and beyond the material coverings.
Padastrayo bahischasan ya ashrama antastrilokayas grihamedo brihadvrata.
The spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond this material world, and it is especially meant for those who will never be reborn. Others who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow celibacy vows must live within the 3 material worlds.
Number 21. Vichakrame Vishwan Sasane Nasane Yad Avidyasha Purushas Purushaha.
By his energies, the all-pervading personality of Godhead is thus comprehensively the master in the activities of controlling and in devotional service. He is the ultimate master of both nescience and factual knowledge of all situations.
Yasmad Andam Virat Yajneya Gunatmakaha Tadravyam At Gobi Surya Evatapan.
From that personality of Godhead, all the universal globes and the universal form with all material elements, qualities, and senses are generated. Yet he is aloof from such material manifestations like the sun, which is separate from its rays and heat. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna, Shyam Prabhu and Jitnataji. Nice recitations. So, Jyoti Mataji, can I share my screen?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, sure. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Screen. Share. Yeah, I guess everyone can see my screen.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's start. We will do the invocation and then chant the verses 8, 9, 10, and 11. Yeah. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Yam Pravajantamanopetomopetakatyam Dvaipayano Virakata Ajava. Putreti Tanmayatayo Tarvo Vinedus Tam Sarvabhutarudayam Mudimanatosmi. So, 8th verse, 6th chapter, 2nd canto. Apam Viryasya Sargasya Prajanyasya Parjanyasya Prajapatehe Pumsaham Shishnopasthastu Prajatyanandanivrutte. From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and the procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting. Is anyone? The genitals and the pleasure of begetting counteract the distresses of family encumbrances. One would cease to generate altogether if there were not, by the grace of Lord, a coating, a pleasure-giving substance on the surface of the generative organs. This substance gives a pleasure so intense that it counteracts fully the distress of family encumbrances. A person who is so captivated by this pleasure-giving substance that he is not satisfied by begetting a single child, but increases the number of children with great risk in regard to maintaining them simply for this pleasure-giving substance. This pleasure-giving substance is not false. However, because it originates from the transcendental body of the Lord, in other words, the pleasure-giving substance is a reality, but it has taken on an aspect of pervertedness on account of material contamination. In the material world, sex life is the cause of many distresses on account of material contact. Therefore, the sex life in the material world should not be encouraged beyond the necessity. There is necessity for generating progeny even in the material world, but such generation of children must be carried out with full responsibility for spiritual values. Spiritual values of life can be realized in the human form of material existence, and the human being must adopt family planning with reference to the context of spiritual values and not otherwise. The degraded form of family restriction by use of contraceptives, etc., is the grossest type of material contamination. Materialists who use these devices want to fully utilize the pleasure potency of the coating on the genitals by artificial means, without knowing the spiritual importance and without knowledge of spiritual values. The less intelligent man tries to utilize only the material sense pleasure of the genitals. Let's go to the next verse. Payuryam asya mitrasya parimokshasya narada himsayam nirutte mrityor nirayasya gudam smrutaha. Translation. O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc. Text number 10. Prabhutera dharmasya tamasaschapi paschimah nadyo nadinam cha gotranam astisam hatihi. The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Purport by Srila Prabhupada.
We can't hear you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, remove me.
We can't hear you.
I can't hear him.
Okay. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, now, yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah. Let me go back to the. Okay, I think we were on purport, so let me start reading the purport again. In order to defy the impersonal conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a systematic analysis of the physiological and anatomical constitution of his transcendental body is given here. It is clear from the available description of the body of the Lord, his universal form, that the form of the Lord is distinct from the forms of ordinary mundane conception. In any case, he is never formless void. Ignorance is the pack of the Lord, and therefore the ignorance of less intelligent class of men is also separate from his bodily conception. Since his body is the complete whole of everything that be, he cannot assert that he is impersonal only. On the contrary, the perfect description of the Lord holds that he is both impersonal and personal simultaneously. The personality of Godhead is the original feature of the Lord, and his impersonal emanation is but the reflection of his transcendental body. Those who are fortunate enough to have a view of the Lord from the front can realize his personal feature, whereas those who are frustrated and are thus kept in the ignorant side, on the ignorant side of the Lord, or in other words, those who have the view of the Lord from the back realize him in his impersonal feature. Okay, let me go to the next verse. अव्यक्तरस सिन्धूनां भूतानां निधनस्य च उदरं विदितं पुंसो हृदयं मनसः पदम्. Translation. The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of subtle material bodies of living entities. Thus, it is known by the intelligent class of men. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 8.17 and 18, it is stated that according to human calculations, one day of Brahma is equal to 1,000 ages of 4 millenniums. 4.3 million years each. And the same period is calculated to be his night also. A Brahma lives for 100 such years and then dies. A Brahma, who is generally a great devotee of the Lord, attains liberation after such a downfall. The universe called Brahmanda, or the round football-like domain controlled by Brahma, is thus annihilated, and thus the inhabitants of a particular planet or of the whole universe are also annihilated. Avyakta mentioned here in this verse means the night of Brahma, when partial annihilation takes place, and the living entities of that particular Brahmanda up to the planets of Brahmalok, along with the big oceans, etc., all repose in the belly of Virata Purusha. At the end of Brahma's night, the creation again takes place, and the living entities reserved within the belly of the Lord are let loose to play their respective parts as if being awakened from the deep slumber. Since the living entities are never destroyed, the annihilation of the material world does not annihilate the existence of living entities. But until liberation is attained, one has to accept one material body after another, again and again. The human life is meant for making a solution to this repeated change of bodies and thereby attaining a place in the spiritual sky, where everything is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. In other words, the subtle forms of the living entities take place in the heart of the Supreme Being, and such forms take tangible shape at the time of creation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah, let's start our invocation and then we will discuss today's verses. Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam स अद्वैतं स अवधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी ऋषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जानुलंबितभुजौ कनकावधातौ संकीर्तनैकपितरौ कमलायताक्षौ विश्वम्भरौ द्विजभरौ युगधर्मपालौ वन्दे जगत्प्रियकरौ करुणा अवतारौ यन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसूक्तां सञ्जीवयत्य अखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणात्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्। So, we have interesting verses today to discuss. So, from the 5th chapter onwards, since Narad Muni has asked his father, Lord Brahma, about the creation of this material world, who says in the beginning, O chief among the demigods, the firstborn living entity. That's how Lord Brahma addresses in the beginning of the 5th chapter. He offers his respectful obeisances to his father. And please tell me the transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual soul and the super soul. So what Lord Brahma is telling here is, for all of us, he's asking this question. Narad Muni is asking this question to his father, Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma is describing here. This is the whole establishment of the Sambandha Jnana, the relationship between soul and the super soul, and the purpose behind creation of this entire manifestation, which is Brahmanda. And that's how it starts. And then in the whole 5th chapter, we have gone through the creation of the material elements, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, and their related senses, and then how that creation takes place. That was discussed. I can see Amok Prabhu is here, and he has very beautifully explained in all his lectures how this process takes place of different incarnations of the Lord, the Purusha, Avatar, and Mahatattva and Pradhan. It was amazing. So here comes in the 6th chapter of, 6th chapter, and this verses here, that it comes to even more details of the creation of all the organs and how those are related to our day-to-day life. And in 5th chapter it goes a little bit abstract because it's at the level of principles. And then here, the Virata Rupa of the Lord comes to how we can relate to our day-to-day life, our organs, and our activities. And these are all the verses which we will talk about. So, interesting bit here is when Lord says, Apam Viryas, when Lord Brahma is explaining Apam about the Lord, Apam Viryas Sargasya Parjanyasya Prajapate Humsaham Shishna Upasthastu Prajatya Nandani Vrittehe. From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and the procreators. His genitals are the cause of the pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting. Now, we can see here that the creation, I want to create something, the idea of, as Lord explains in the 3rd chapter, what is the reason for living entities to do certain things despite of knowing that this may result in something which they cannot conceive, either pleasant or unpleasant. And what is the reason behind it? And Lord says in the 3rd chapter, it's the lust behind it. That's the main cause. That's the force behind creating all the activities. Where is that lust coming from? In the 3rd canto, later on in the 5th canto, then in 7th canto, and even to some extent in the 8th canto, we will get the glimpses of the details of what are the living entities' desires. And in fact, the same Narad Muni explains that in the 4th canto, when he's talking to King Prachinavari, and he talks about the 9 gates and the Puranjan and everything. He explains the desires of the living entities. What is the force behind the living entities, how the lusty desires manifest, and what is the reasoning behind it? He explains that. And obviously Lord Kapila Dev, he's the proprietor of Sankhya Yoga. Out of the 6 schools in Sanatan Dharma, one of the schools is a Sankhya school, and he is the chief of that. So he explains that even very beautifully to his mother Devavati. Now, begetting the children and maintaining them, and Prabhupada gives the details about sex life, the reasoning behind the sex life. If we see the background or the cause of it is, as I'm going back a little bit, going a bit further, but they're taking the references from the third canto here. The desire of the living entity is to, when the envy takes place in the heart of the living entity, and that time, because of that envy, the living entity develops the desire of creation, that I am the actually creator. That envy towards whom? Towards the Supreme Lord. And that desire of creation, it's like a mother, when a small child, a daughter or small child wants to do something and or replicate or to copy the father or the mother, and the parents say that, okay, you take this toy and you play with it, and child is happy with it, because child thinks that I am the creator, I'm doing something. And here it is the similar, this is the analogy which we can relate to this, where the living entity wants to create, and that creation, it's basically the mimicking or copying the Lord. And here, for a small child, it is not out of envy, but in this particular case, living entities, that's out of envy. And as Prabhupada explains in the purport, it's the perverted reflection of which comes to the material world, and that is the reason people are so attached to the sex life, to the lusty desires, and that's the whole background behind it. Now, the question comes to the mind is, since we have started our devotional path, our devotional devotional life, we are, as Prabhupada says, that we are supposed to dovetail everything, all our tendencies, for the service of the Lord. And how to do that? And again, as our law book is Bhagavad Gita, so we will go to some of the verses related to this once we complete all the verses up to verse 11. So if we see all these 8, 9, 10, and 11 verses, Lord Brahma is actually explaining the creation of this material world, and what are all the entities, what is their mentality, and what type of thinking Lord allows the living entities to get into. Some living entity, or some people can say, I don't believe in the personal form of the Lord, and Lord says, okay, you can believe in my impersonal form. As the Sri Upanishad explains it very beautifully, that everything in this material world is complete, but if it is not related to the Lord, that completeness, as Shukdev Goswami says in one of the verses, very, very beautifully explains this. This is a very eye-opening verse, actually. Shukdev Goswami says that if the soul is not connected to super soul, that the meaning of the existence of soul, there is no meaning to the existence of the soul. Very, very powerful verse, he says that. And in the same way, if we cannot relate to this, our organs and our desires, our facilities, everything, to the creation, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the existence of this organs, the facilities, everything given to us, doesn't have much meaning, because it's just a bubble it's like a bubble in the water. Srila Bhakticharu Maharaj gives a very beautiful analogy in that perspective. He says that in a fountain, there are it, we will see so many bubbles and so many drops of water moving here and there. What is the meaning of that existence? Nothing. If we see the fountain on its own, then the meaning of that bubbles and that the drops and the whole creation has meaning. And it's a beautiful example Bhakti Maharaj gives. And what should come to our mind is, first is the source of organs is the Lord, and the powerful nature of organs, our which is given to us as a facility, that source is coming from the Lord. If he has the head pujari of our Bhaktivedanta manor, His Grace Anantagopal Prabhu, whenever we talk something, he reminds me very important point. He says that Lord always shares his opulences. We should always remind ourselves that Lord always shares his opulences with the living entities. Like Father shares the wealth and his house and everything with the children. In the same way, Lord has shared his opulences with us. Our organs, the capacity to beget the children, our capacity to think, our intellect, the power of the mind to take the decisions, everything is given by the Lord. He has shared his opulences. And as we were talking about in Upanishad, that everything is complete, and that completeness is coming when it is related to the Lord, when we connect it to the Lord, then only it is complete. And then we realize the powerful nature of the organs, because those organs, it is a reflection, it's the sharing from the supremely powerful organs of the Lord. And hence, in this particular context of this verse, the power of lusty desires also comes from the original source, who is the supreme Lord himself. And what is the reason for that desire? Is to serve the Lord. How? By using our desires in the right perspective. And here, why Prabhupada explains this in this purport, that there are Jivatmas who will take birth in the family when the union takes place, according to the nature of the father and mother. If they are in the right spiritual understanding, the pious soul will take birth in the family. And out of those 16 samskaras, if the pious soul takes birth in the family, naturally what will happen? There will be, the atmosphere will be auspicious. The relationships, as His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj says, that the sweet relationships will flourish, which is a source of happiness. Mode of goodness will be prominent, and that's the reason the right approach for procreation is very necessary. And that is the right use of lusty desires, of connecting our existence to the Supreme Lord himself. Now everything comes with rule. Now, obviously, as we talked about, if it is part of the 16 samskaras, it comes with rules and regulations. And what is that? What are the rules and regulations? As it is there in the scriptures, we won't go to those details. But how important human form of life is, that's the first and the foremost understanding, that how fortunate we have that we have received this human form of life. And then rules and regulations for the human form of life. as the famous example of if this body is given to us, if this machine is given to us, there is a manual also given to us. And that manual is the scriptures. How to use this body. What is the use of mind? What is the use of intelligence? How the false ego should be using the facilities around us, given to us. Ishavasya vidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Tena tyaktena bhunjita mam buddha kasya siddhanam. The first verse of Upanishad, Sri Upanishad, where it is said that everyone has given the facilities for a reason, and that's the crux of that, the first verse of the Sri Upanishad. The next point comes is use of resources given to us has come from the Lord Himself, as I was talking about the example of His Grace Anant Gopal Prabhu's what he shares with us, that if the opulences of the Lord He has shared with us, it's a responsibility, and it's not just a power, and that's responsibility. We have how careful we should be, and that's what we will go in the next 3-4 verses. We will just read through. O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole in the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, fortune, death, hell, etc. So now, what we can learn from this, what we can take away from this particular verse is, as His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Maharaj used to say, that we want to die forever. And so he used to say that with such a smiling, blissful face that a lot of times people used to understand with that one statement what he's trying to say. Because of obviously that's the purity of Maharaj, that death should be, Maharaj used to say that it should be the last death in this material world, and that's what the meaning is. If we understand that death is also a benediction given by the Lord, so that we will understand that it is we are going to see the face of the Lord. In southern India, one Acharya says that from Ramanuja Sampradaya, that at the time of death, if I don't remember the Lord, I'm going to face death again and again and again. He says that in Tamil, but in English it's not that effective. But he says that if I don't, that's basically he's saying that Antakale chamamima swaran muktva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhava yati nastatra samshaya. If we remember the Lord, obviously the Lord, the Vishnudutas will come, and then the soul will see the Lord face to face. That's what the Acharya is saying in that Nalaraka Divya Prabandha. So that's what this verse is telling us, that our responsibility in the human form of life is to remember the Lord and have that intense desire to see the Lord face to face. I think, let me expand this. Let's go to the 10th verse. Parabhutera dharmasya tamasaschapi paschimah nadyo nadinam cha gotranam asti samhati. the back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. So, again, if as 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Lord showed the universal form to Arjun, he was fearful and he requested the Lord to see that two-armed form, which is the most merciful form of the Lord, which all of us can relate to that form of the Lord. And here, as that Arjun says that I want to see your form. It's an interaction, establishment of the Sambandha Dhyan, relation between soul and the super soul. If we don't want to see the back of the Lord, we want to see the Lord face to face. We want to have that interaction. We want to have that loving exchange with the Lord, and that's what Prabhupada is giving us here. That impersonal emanation or the reflection of his transcendental body. There is a personal feature, but if we ignore that personal feature, the person will be in ignorance. Because naturally, if there is no relationship, the person will try to see the reflection of his own false ego and try to lord it over the material nature. In Prabhupada has explained this time and again, that if there is no relationship, then the ego will tell the mind that you want to become the Lord. And that is the impersonal conception people will come up with. And that's the dangerous aspect of Mayavad. Let's go to the next verse now. Avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso hrudayam manasahapadam. Very, very beautiful verse. Lot more to learn. The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of living entities. Thus, it is known by the intelligent class of men. So let's look at this particular important verse. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharyad brahmano viduhu ratrim yuga sahasrante teho ratra vido janaha. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together from the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. And then it talks about the different yugas, the actual number of years in every yuga. Obviously, in third canto, this is right up to the calculation of the time and how to calculate the time. Because right now the calculation of the time currently is not accurate. The calculation of time should be universal. It's in the entire universal in the entire universe. The time should be calculated with the same parameter, irrespective of the gravitational force and all. So that in third canto we will see. We have the details of how the calculation of time takes place, and then Pala Ghatika, and then goes up to the how to calculate the years. So this is the description of Lord Brahma's life, all the 4 yugas, and in one day of Brahma, how Lord himself, Supreme Lord Krishna himself appears. So that's what this purport is. So let's go to some of the important verses from Bhagavad Gita. Here. makes points. Because it helps if we see the verses from Bhagavad Gita, which are related to the creation, and we can easily relate to the set of discussions for this sixth chapter of what we are talking about in the Bhagavatam. So, in the 14th chapter, Lord is saying, Sarvayonishu Kaunteya Murtayaha Sambhavantiyaha Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir Aham Bija Prajapita Bija Pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. Because we are talking about the procreation and how that should be related to the Lord. So I thought of just going through this particular verse. Yes, in the purport, Lord says, anyone would like to read the purport? It's quite important purport. Am I audible?
I can read it.
That's it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Please do.
Please go ahead. I already read the verses today, so yeah.
Who was going to read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yeah, of course, please do.
One second, I can't see, it's too small.
Is it?
Yes, Prabhuji, if you can increase the font a little bit, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hang on. Is this okay now?
Mm. Yeah, it's better now. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the original father of all living entities. The living entities are combinations of the material nature and the spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet, but on every planet, even on the highest, where Brahma is situated. Everywhere there are living entities. Within the earth, there are living entities, even within water and within fire. All these appearances are due to the mother, material nature, and Krishna's seed giving process. The purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation according to their past deeds. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Dandavat.
Do you want to say anything, or do you want to give any your understanding? Would you like to speak on this particular purport of the verse in the context of what we are discussing now?
Here it is, Prabhupada has very clearly explained that, there are living entities everywhere.
Yeah.
On the wherever, in all the planets everywhere, and Krishna is the seed giving father.
Yeah. So, as Prabhupada has explained here, that if there are living entities throughout this Brahmanda, and if their bodies are created because of Lord has given the go ahead, yes, now this body, this particular living entity deserves, and that's how we are able to function. So, and that's the reason Lord says, Aham Bija Pradapita. He is the seed giving father. Where else he says in the Bhagavad Gita? Anyone? We'll be going to those verses anyway, so not a problem. This is 4. We'll go to third one as well. The source of birth and Brahma that Lord impregnates makes possible the birth of all living entities, O son of Bharata. Again, Prabhupada brings the background behind Mundaka Upanishad, and then in later some of the verses he brings the details from the Kathopanishad as well. It's a very detailed explanation of the reasoning behind why any living entity gets a particular body. He explains that in various verses. So this is one of the important verses. Let's go to another very, very fascinating verse related to today's verse, especially the 8th one. Balam balavatam chaham kamaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshabha. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles, O Lord of Bharatas. Very apt verse for what we were discussing today in 268. So any of our organs which are given to us as an opulence by the Lord, we need to use it for the service of the Lord. Strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. Similarly, sex life, according to religious principles, dharma, should be for the propagating of children, not otherwise. The responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring Krishna conscious. Clear? Very. Prabhupada has given it straight to the point. We don't have to think about anything else. Let's go to another. So who is the, now as we just saw in the purport that it is for the service of the Lord. Why? Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanenu kaunteya jagadvi parivartate. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving entities. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. 10th chapter, end of the 10th chapter, Krishna confirms what is the need for explaining all his opulences. With the spark of my splendor, I can do everything. He says that towards the end of the 10th chapter, last 2 verses actually. So this is another verse which is especially related to the 11th verse we were discussing about. Aham kraturaham yajnaha swadhaham aham aushadham mantroham ahamevajyam aham agniraham hutam. But it is I who am the ritual, the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. Of course, in the 4th chapter, Lord says that for the living entity's objective should be spiritualizing everything. Does anyone remember the verse? Which verse where Lord says that how to spiritualize everything? I will tell you the verse now. Brahmarpana Brahmavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhi. So I am the butter and the fire. Brahmarpana Brahma Havir. Havir means butter. And that's so our all activities should be as an offering to the service to serve the Lord. Yajjoshi yadasnasi yatkaroshi dadasi yattapasyasi kaunteya tatkurusha madarpanam. In 9th chapter, he says that even more elaborately. Jyotistoma, the Vedic sacrifice is also Krishna, because Adhiyadni means is the Lord himself, another name of the Lord, that we are Adibhuta, living the demigods are Adidaiva, and then the Supreme Lord is also called Adhiyadni. Yeah, he is also Mahayadnya, because the first yajna is the Lord and the biggest sacrifice is the Lord himself. Oblations. This is very much, if you read the verse Brahmarpana Brahmavir from the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, this is, it's explained in the beginning there, and in the 9th chapter, this is further explained in this particular, about the actual types of sacrifices. And obviously, in the 10th chapter, of course, the 9th chapter, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantasya Dudavata, the importance of the chanting, Lord explains. And then the most important yajna, the sacrifice, is the chanting of the holy name, is the Sankirtan yajna. Lord says that in the 10th chapter. So here, Krishna establishes that he is the father of this universe. Everything is from him. And then the Chatushlok Gita in the 10th chapter comes, that Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. But before that, he's saying, Pitahamasya Jagato Mata Dhata Pitamaha Vedyam Pavitram Omkara Ruk Sama Yajurevacha. All the 4 Vedas. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of the knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sam, and the Yajurvedas. And then Prabhupada gives the details of Pranama Mantra, how it came in the Atharva Veda and all that. So let's see one more verse. Yeah, that's what we just talked about. Yat karoshi, yat dasnasi, yat joshi dadasi, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurusha madhupanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, all the austerities you perform, O son of Kunti, do that as an offering to me. So in the 13th chapter, which is, what is the name of the 13th chapter? What is that? In Sanskrit, the name is the nature enjoyer, the consciousness, but Purusha. Okay, I am not able to recollect. That's one of the important verses from 13th chapter. Ya evam vekti purusham prakritim cha gunais saha sarvatha vartamanopi na sa bhuyo bhajayate. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth again, regardless of his present position. So, 3 modes of material nature. What is the basis? That's what we have discussed in the 5th chapter. So that's the reason I thought this verse is relevant to it in this particular context, in this discussion. The living entity and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. Where else Lord says that Janma Karma Cha Me Vidyam and Divyam Evam Eva Vedkita Tata. That understanding that going beyond the modes of material nature and Divya Leela, that Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam in the 4th chapter, Lord says, that's the person will not take birth again, regardless of his present position. And that's the confirmation. In the 10th chapter, this is the first verse of Chatushlok Gita. You all know that very, very well. We will not discuss that verse in detail again. This is one of the interesting or the important verses where Lord says that of all the Rudras, I am the Lord Shiva, the most powerful demigod. Of the Yakshas and the Rakshasas, I am Lord of Wealth, Kuvera, and of the Vasus, I am fire, who is Agni, and in the mountains, I am Meru. So what he's saying is everything we see magnanimous, the most powerful, because the whole, it's the, in Kali Yuga, all the weapons are based on Agni, on the principle of fire. And he's saying here that of all the Vasus, I am fire, Agni, and of the mountains I'm the Mount Meru. We all know the importance of wealth, and he says that he is the Lord of the wealth, Kubera. So everything around us is, as we were talking about, the opulence is shared by the Lord. So this verse reminds us that everything around us is basically the opulence shared by the Lord with us. Another verse, I'm all devouring death, because we talked about the 11th verse, so I thought this is relevant to it. And I'm the generating principle of that is yet to be. Among women, I'm fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. All glories to Mataji's. And then we will go to the last verse. Yachapi sarvabhutanam bijam tadaham arjuna. Na tadasti vina yastyam maya bhutam characharam. Furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me. And in the purport, it's a short purport, so we will read it. Everything has a cause, and that cause or seed of manifestation is Krishna. Without Krishna's energy, nothing can exist. Therefore, he is called omnipotent. Without his potency, neither the movable nor the immovable can exist. Whatever existence is founded on the energy of Krishna is called Maya, that which is not. Whatever existence is not founded on the energy of Krishna is called Maya. That means whatever is temporary, that is all Maya, because the manifestation is temporary in this material world. So I think, we will stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Are there any questions or any additions? Amok Prabhu, do you have anything to add?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It is very wonderful to and bringing all the philosophy, bringing together, connecting to all these 4 verses. So this Purusha Sukta confirmed. So here Brahma is explaining about how everything is as part of the Virat Rupa. So this is Sahasrajisha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapa. So Bhumim Vispatotpatchit Dashangulam. This the Purusha Sukta is always every day. It is sung in front of the Lord in the temples, mostly in the South India. So this where the personality of this Vishwarupa explaining all the Brahmanas and the kings and Vaishyas, Sudras, and all this mind, intelligence, and everything. It glorifies every day. It gives a explanation of all the Vishwarupa as well. So just wanted to bring a point as per the chapter name is the Purusha Sukta confirmed. Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I wanted to tell you something. On YouTube, there is a 21 minutes recitation by Venugopal Khatawkar. It's a channel called Dasosmi or Dasoham, I think. And his pronunciation, his intonations are so beautiful. Whenever I do deity worship at home, I just switch on that YouTube for 21 minutes. It's very purifying. Amazing the way he has recited. So you may check that.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Okay, Hare Krishna. So thank you, Amar Prabhu, for reminding about the Vishnu Sahasranam. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments, or can stop here? It's already 9 o'clock. If there is nothing, then thank you, everybody. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu evacha patitanam
Patitanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnava.
Vaishnava.
Thank
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji, for very
Krishna.
nice class.
Thank
you.
you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class.
Thank
Thank you.
you, Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.